It looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind. It either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
What are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
This is Susie from Southern California. You are listening to my favorite show, Sasquatch Chronicles.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you. We're going to be chatting with Miranda, Jeanette, and Carol. And Miranda is the daughter, Jeanette is the mother, and Carol is the aunt. And they all grew up on this property out there in Oklahoma off of Chewy Road. And over 20 years ago, Carol had a run-in with the creature, a very scary run-in with it. Janette saw it, and Miranda and Janette were both out, and they had heard the creature. It's very interesting stuff on this property. The really strange part is all the paranormal activity going on the property, and the three of them barely spoke about it until recently. They were kind of afraid, people would think they were crazy. But let's kind of start with Janette. Janette, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know over 20 years ago, this is back in around 2000, you had a sighting near the property. If you would, just kind of start from the beginning, kind of what were you doing and what happened?
Well, I work at a factory, and we work till 2:30, 3:30 in the morning, and I was getting a ride home, and we was about a block away from turning right on where I live at, and we seen a man walking across the street. It's a busy highway, and I wondered why someone would be walking that time of morning across the highway. And when he walked across the highway, he got to the side of the road, and he just stood there. My friend slowed down to see who this person was and why they were standing there. And so when we slowed way down and we passed him, I was on the passenger side, and when I looked at him, he was about 5'10", and he was hairy. He didn't have hair like on his cheeks and his nose and some of his forehead, and he was just staring straight at me. And I didn't do anything. I just looked at him. I didn't look at my friend. We didn't talk about it. And then she dropped me off, and I just never talked to her about it, and she didn't mention it to me. And then about 20 years later, I was selling kittens. I seen her, and I asked her if she remembered driving me home, 20 years ago, and a man walking across the highway, and she said yes. I asked her, what was it? And she said it was Bigfoot. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I said, why didn't we talk about it? And she said, you didn't say anything. And I thought maybe could just see it since you didn't say anything. And it was just the oddest thing. We just never talked about it.
Yeah, it's very common, actually. That sort of, I guess we'll call it human behavior. That happens more often than you would think, Jeanette, where two people have an encounter and you would think they would be talking all the way home, but it's just the opposite. Can I ask you, as you were passing it, can you kind of describe what you saw?
Yeah, he didn't, it was really odd because he was about 5'10", and when he was walking across the street, he just looked like a man. He wasn't hunched over, he wasn't bouncy, you know what I mean? Like wondering what it was. And it's like he was shaped like a man, but he had hair all over him, and his face looked like more of like a werewolf man type. Do you know what I mean? I mean, his neck, well, I guess from his chin down, it was just really hairy, and his head, but he didn't have gobs of hair on his face because I could see, his eyes and everything. It was more of a dark skin on his cheeks, and I didn't notice his nose, being large or anything. And he was just staring at me. I mean, he was just staring straight at me. It was really weird.
Yeah, I know when you say Wolfman, today we say Wolfman and most people think Dogman, but I think you and I kind of grew up at the same time around the 80s. And when you say Wolfman, are you talking about like Michael J. Fox in Teen Wolf, where he's halfway in between, or was it more like a werewolf?
Yeah, he didn't have, he wasn't covered, um, in hair. I seen more of the, I guess it was like darker skin. But yeah, he looked like the kind of like the Wolfman, like I guess like Michael J. Fox. But his body was full of hair.
Yeah, no, a lot of encounters, especially roadside sightings, the creatures aren't as big as other like hunters report or hikers report, and and it makes me wonder sometimes if they're younger or what's going on with regard to the size. I mean, the one that you saw, you're saying it was what, about the average size of a man?
I think he was about 5'10", because when we passed him, I was in a truck and I didn't have to look up at him. It's like when we were passing him, I just was able just to, look at him. And he wasn't very big. I just was staring straight at him and he was staring straight at me. And I was on the passenger side, so I was pretty close. And we were going slow because, we didn't know what this person was doing. But yeah, I can see it clear as day, all these years later. I think the reason why I didn't say anything is because I was thinking, I don't think I was supposed to have seen that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, something like that, maybe I shouldn't have seen that.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. I mean, it's something to where it's not supposed to exist, but yet here it is right in front of you. I get totally where you're coming from. What were you thinking, when you found out your sister had seen one Carol and your daughter was experiencing weird things on the property?
I just wasn't surprised at that point, I guess, because, I knew that I seen it. So if they seen it, I believed them.
Yeah, I hear ya. And I know you're nervous coming on. There's no reason to be nervous. And they're very real. I mean, people are running into them. And I know it sounds crazy when you recount something that happened to you, but a lot of people who've listened to the show have seen them as well. Can I ask you, Jeanette, if someone were to say to you, what is Sasquatch? What would you say?
I don't even know. I wouldn't even know what to say. I would think it was more man, and I think that they're a lot more smarter than what people think. Because he didn't look. It's like he knew what he was doing when he was standing there. It's like he purposely, when he seen us coming, he stopped on the side of the road. You know what I mean? Because he seen us coming. Do you know what I mean? If he was an animal, he would have, went and hid, and you know what I mean, not thought twice. But seeing us, he was standing there waiting for us.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jeanette. I mean, if it is more man-like behavior to stand there and wait for you guys to go by, in normal wildlife, it's just going to take off running. How far away from your guys' home at the time was this road?
Oh, we probably weren't even a block from. We lived on the corner of this highway, and we weren't even a block from there. And you know what was weird was it seems like I would have been afraid to go in the house, because we lived right there on the corner, but I never thought again about it. It's really weird. Seems like I would have went in the house and would have been terrified, seeing that.
Yeah, it could have been shock. And the creature really wasn't violent. It was just kind of standing there as you went by. I could see you not necessarily being terrified. Might have been a little shocked too. Before you saw this creature kind of living in this area and on the property itself, had you ever heard of any strange vocalizations around there?
No, there was a lot of paranormal stuff that happened on the property. Our animals would stare or they would get nervous. We had a guinea pig and it would stare off and start squeaking and we'd be looking around and the water faucet would come on by itself and we'd hear the water running and have to figure out where it was running from and stuff like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a haunted property just from talking to your daughter Miranda. But I really, and we'll chat with Miranda next, but I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to share what happened to you, Jeanette.
Thank you.
Hey, Miranda, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And before we get to some of the weird paranormal stuff that you experienced, which is very creepy, tell me about this encounter that you had with your mother.
When we had gone to my grandparents' house, who lived down the hill from us, took about 3 minutes to walk from our house. My grandparents were gone for the summer in California, and we walked down there to grab something to eat, me and my mother, and we locked the house up, and the cats were walking under our feet, trying to trip us up. We had about 3 cats that were just walking along with us up the hill back to our house, and we heard all these birds in this tree about 4 feet away from us. They were all in the one tree, and they were all going crazy, chirping and being loud, and the birds took off all at once out of the tree. They just bolted out of the tree, and it startled us. And then our cats took off after the birds left. And then we heard what I could only think would be a lion from Africa, an African lion. That sounds crazy, but it was so loud that it rattled our chest and froze us right where we were standing. It was terrifying. My mom looked at me, and I could see on her face that she was telling me not to run. So we slowly walked back up the hill, and we got through the first gate that started up the hill. We went through the gate. My mom locked it behind us. And right as we got under the floodlight where we could see around us, we took off running into the house fast. We got in the house, and I fell to the floor, and I started crying, telling my mom to call my dad because there was something out there. We were telling my dad to come home from work. Please come home. And he didn't believe us. He thought we were imagining it or it was something else. But we both knew it wasn't human. And it wasn't a normal animal. We hear normal animal noises all the time living by the woods, but I can't explain what that was. It was horrifying.
Yeah, I've heard that lion roar myself, and it is terrifying to hear it. And I don't know what else to compare it to. I mean, lions about the only imagine a lion roaring, and that's kind of what it sounds like. I could see how it would shake you guys up, and you're right, Miranda. You do feel it. We were just talking to Jeanette, your mother. Was this before or after her encounter?
This is a year after her encounter, which she told me nothing about. So I think we've talked about it just a couple years ago. She finally told me her encounter when I was saying, hey, do you remember, that time we had that encounter with whatever that was? And I think then she kind of knew what it was, maybe. I don't know. We both know that it wasn't normal in any sort of way. Yeah.
And this really is the only incident that you've encountered with the creature, correct?
Yeah, it's the first time that I heard it, but after that I was never out at night, and you always felt it when something was around when you're outside. It's a weird feeling of fear where you want to run, but you don't know why. So I after that encounter, I didn't go outside at night, and that was the only time that I ever heard it or seen anything.
Yeah, and I want to kind of get into some of this paranormal stuff that happened to you. It's very creepy, and I don't wish it upon anyone. But what did you think when your mom and your aunt are telling you about what happened to them?
She told me 2 years ago, and it was only because I had told my husband what happened to us, and my husband listens to things all the time, a podcast while he's at work, and he he told me about a few. One of them was yours, and about the lion roar, and I asked my mother about it. I asked her if she remembered it, and then she told me about her own encounter, and that scared me to death.
When people have these creatures on their property, they'll generally talk about other things like balls of light. And I know from your email you had seen those. And before we get into some of the different paranormal things that happened to you, do you think that the paranormal stuff that's going on the property and these creatures, it's all related, or do you think it's something completely two different things going on?
I don't know. Then I thought it was separate, but as I'm learning more about it, I think it's connected somehow. I don't know how, but I think it's connected in some way.
Yeah, and I know Jeanette had mentioned the water turning on by itself and hearing noises. What are some of the things that you experienced on this property?
Well, first off, my mother always believed me. Everything I told her that I seen and heard, she never second guessed it for a second. She never thought I was imagining it. She believed me 100%. And I think it's because she's seen how scared I was. When I was younger and we moved out of the guest house, which was next to our house, we called it the studio, and into our house that we lived in, I started to see, it's going to sound so crazy. I started to see a man in our bathroom, and I felt like he was evil when I was a kid. I still feel that way, that it was evil. Um, I seen him clear as day. I would have to have my mother go in the bathroom with me because I was petrified to even pass the bathroom. I seen orbs outside all the time. I was afraid if I talked about it too much, they'd come back and hurt me. I don't know why I thought that when I was a child, but I would see the orbs when I would be outside on my bike or jumping on my trampoline. I was an only child, so I spent my time outside playing on the 15 acres of land we had. I spent all of it outside. My grandpa called me Stinker my whole life. I would hear my name being called outside, and I know it wasn't human. I swear to God, it was a demon. And I was so afraid when I was a kid that if I went to it, it would take me. And I feel like, that's what it wanted. But I would hear the name Stinker be yelled at me all the time. And I would run in, fast. And I wouldn't tell my grandparents about it or my mother for a long time because I was petrified. But when I did, she believed me.
Yeah, when you heard your nickname being called from the forest, why did you think it was demonic?
It was deep, and it didn't sound human. It didn't sound human at all. It was, it had a tone to it, a deep rumble tone. It didn't sound right. I don't know how else to explain it. It didn't sound human. It didn't sound right at all. I could hear it, Stinker, the name Stinker, but the way it was being said, I felt like it was evil. I still feel that way. As an adult, it still scares me to talk about because I'm afraid it's going to come back,
Yeah, I understand. Beyond the deep and the rumbling voice, did it kind of have a kind of like how a deaf person talks, that sort of quality?
Yeah. I wasn't sure how to explain it. Yeah, that's how it. Is that demonic?
It could be. The reason why I asked that specific question is a lot of times when people have these creatures on their property, they'll report their names being called, but it sounds a little bit off. There's something not quite right with it. And the cadence is kind of a lot like the Ron Moorhead, the what they call the samurai chatter. It has that sort of vocal tune and cadence, but it almost sounds like a deaf person trying to pronounce a name. I'll give you an example, and I've talked about this many times, but on the Brown's property, Sarah Brown has hours and hours and hours of this saying, calling her name. And you hear it out in the woods. It's Sarah, Sarah, and it's not magic how they figured out her name. When I was there, Jonathan had gotten home from work and he had pulled up in the driveway, and they have a big piece of property. And he got out of his car and he was yelling, Sarah, Sarah, for her to come back in from the property. But it does sound demonic. I would put it in that sort of category, whatever demonic sounds like. It sounds evil when you hear it. But it kind of has that weird cadence, that weird, almost like a deaf person trying to say your name, or in your case, your nickname. And maybe it heard your grandfather calling you that. It's very strange, but it could be more demonic, more on the paranormal side, because there was plenty of that going on there. Did you ever figure out who the guy in the bathroom was? Was it someone who died there?
Well, I could tell that he was Native American, and he had injuries on him. I tried to do a little bit of research as an adult just to see if I could, maybe it was someone that lived there or something like that. But I never found out who it was. That that one scared me quite a bit.
Was this guy solid like you and I?
Oh yeah, plain as day. I haven't seen anything since, obviously, since I've moved out of that home. But he looked like a person. He wasn't translucent, or he wasn't see through, or he looked like a person.
Can you kind of describe him? What was he dressed like? What was he doing when you saw him?
Okay, he had injuries on his head, injuries that I don't know what all I can say on here. He had injuries to his head that were common, a long time ago, with scalping. He looked very, the way he looked at me was mean, evil. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He stared at me. And for some reason, I knew that he was bad, and I don't know why I had that feeling. I think just because he wasn't real. When I was a kid, I just automatically thought, well, he's bad, you know, he's a ghosts are bad. And I didn't realize that no one else could see him until I told my mother about it. And she obviously didn't see him. It was only me, but she believed me. She would go in the bathroom with me. Each time I had to go, she would stand in there with me because I was that scared. He was nude. He didn't have any clothes on. That's all I can remember as an adult.
Yeah, that's horrible to go through, especially, being a little girl, being a kid, seeing something like that. It's weird. I wonder why it would appear to you and not to your mother, even though your mother had experienced weird things like the water turning on and different things on that property. Creepy, creepy stuff. Can I ask you, you and I were talking about the orbs prior to coming on the show. Tell me about these balls of light that you saw on the property.
Well, my bedroom was facing this tree, which was towards the forest area of the property. I never had blinds or curtains on my window because I hardly stayed in there. When I would be in my room at times, just hanging out or doing something, I would always see them out the same window, which was my bedroom window. They would be by the same tree, where I would also see a figure, a shadow, which I assumed was, again, paranormal of some sort. I mean, the figure would look like a person, and I feel like that's has something to do with the orbs, because the orbs were always there by the tree. They always appeared there, and it was always. I always tried to show my mom. I would run and grab her real quick, try to bring her back so she could, see them by the tree, and they would be gone. And I was terrified to stay in my room, specifically that room. It didn't matter if I had curtains on there or not. I felt watched. I felt fear. I felt like I had to get out of there. When I would be in there doing something, listening to music or something, I would get this fear over me that's unexplainable, and then something would say in my mind to run, get out of there. And I'd run out of the room, and times I wouldn't feel that fear, but I would see the orbs, which they scared me just as much. But for some reason, staring at the orbs was almost more calming than anything else that went on around there. The orbs were the wasn't the scariest part. I could look at them and not be scared, almost, stand there and stare at them for a while, because you can't figure out what it is. Is it a flashlight? Okay, is it someone standing there? But sometimes they would grow. There would be two of them most of the time, and they were together. One was always white, and one was always blue, and they would grow bigger and smaller, like pulsating almost, I guess is how I'd explain it. But I always tried to get my mom to see them, and they would always be gone. That really bothered me. And I know she's had her own experiences with orbs around the house, but that was mine. Was they were always by that tree, and I don't know why that tree was so significant. But I seen the shadow there every night. That shadow would be there. I mean, like clockwork. I actually had my stepdad go out to that tree and break branches down, because I was thinking, well, if there's no branches on the tree, maybe it'll disappear. I don't know why I thought that, but he did it. He went out there. I told him the tree scared me, and he cut all the branches off, and it would come back. So it didn't leave. But the orbs were the most calming part of the whole place.
Yeah, and I know you weren't the only one to see the lights. I know other family members had seen these balls of light, and I could see, compared to the guy in the bathroom and some of the other stuff going on there, why the lights wouldn't be terrifying. And when you look at them, they're more mesmerizing than really terrifying. What do you think was going on this property?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I thought it was normal to feel fear like that and to be that scared all the time, until I moved, and then that feeling completely went away. And it was the oddest thing that I thought it was just normal I thought I was just scared, and I thought it was everyone had these problems at their home with the paranormal. Obviously they didn't, but I don't know. My grandparents, I know they've experienced things with their animals being torn apart, their ducks and geese, their necks being broken, the geese. Animals would disappear all the time. We'd constantly have to be buying new ducks and geese because they would all disappear. I mean, at once they'd be gone. I don't know if they ever seen or heard anything. They're the type that would stay quiet about it and not admit it ever.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, growing up and having this become normal. I get it though, and I understand it. There's people who, they're tormented on their property with these creatures, and after a while, there's the little things just become normal, and anyone else, it would be something huge. They would freak out. And I can't even imagine what you had to deal with, especially growing up and seeing that guy in the bathroom. That's creepy enough. And then over by the tree and just having that feeling of fear is a terrible way to grow up. It's one of those things. I think it makes you stronger as a person, but no one really wants to go through it. I want to ask you about Sasquatch. I know we're going to get to Carol, your aunt, here in a moment, and her encounter was very similar to a guest I had on Friday night's show for the members, Holly, and her car was attacked. But I know that you've been kind of looking into this subject, and I ask everyone, Miranda, what do you think Sasquatch is? And there's no wrong answer, of course.
I'm still, as an adult, kind of learning now that I'm away from that place. Obviously, I want to know more about what happened there. So I'm constantly, now I'm trying to find answers. That's all I want to do now. It's become, a daily thing where I just want to know. I think it's linked to the paranormal on that property. I really do. The orbs, I think it's connected somehow. I don't know how. And it could be just an animal, but what went on in that property, I don't know. Everything together, I feel like it was connected somehow. I don't know why, but
Yeah, and that's definitely a fair answer. I mean, I don't know is a fair answer for sure. No one really knows. And, it is strange that this all started. The reason why I talk about the lights, Miranda, is back probably 6, 7 years ago, I would talk to people who would have these creatures on their property. And as a side note, they would always go, "Oh, and by the way, I'm also seeing these weird lights." And I thought they were talking about UFOs. I was like, and when you start asking more questions, they're talking about these balls of light flying around. And time again, especially when people had these things on their property, they would also talk about this other weird stuff that goes on. So there may be a coincidence, or it might be related. It's so hard to say, at this point. And I know sharing these different experiences is something very personal, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
no problem. I thank you very much for letting us all get on here together. I was happy that we got to be together and talk about it.
Yeah, it's great to have all you guys on. Hey, Carol. I really appreciate you coming on. I know you're the aunt to Miranda and the sister of Janette. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
If you would, Carol, kind of take us back to this moment when you saw the creature. I know we're going back over 20 years ago, but kind of what were you doing and what happened?
Well, I had just I dropped my boyfriend off, and it was when my grandson was 2 years old, and now he's 20. So it happened like a long time ago. I was going down the dirt road, and it's a road that I went down thousands of times. And I started messing with the radio, and there was, and it's way out there, and I was driving so slow because my car was pretty small. It had small tires, and not expecting to see anything, just moseying along. And I rounded that curve, and messing with the radio, something caught my eye. and there was a movement, and I happened to look up. And by the time I looked up and really realized what it was like right there in front of me. It didn't turn its whole body, but it turned its head to look at me. And I could not see its eyes because it was so big and it was so dark and hairy. And it took my breath away. And I started screaming. And of course, it scared the crap out of my grandson. He started crying. And it just hit. I don't know if I almost ran into it, but it hit the top of my hood. And so that's how close that was. And I just automatically threw it in reverse. I don't even know if anybody was behind me. Luckily, there wasn't. And I threw it in reverse, and I don't know how far I drove in reverse. I was so scared. I'm talking, I was terrified. I thought it was going to start chasing me or something. I mean, because who knows, what's in the mind of something like that. Was going to reverse, and I finally did like a U-E on the dirt road, and I just hauled butt. And I was just driving over rocks and crap. I did not care. I wasn't even driving straight. I was scared to death because I just knew it was, going to be behind me. So, in the meantime, my grandson, he was just crying. He was so scared. I was scared. I went back home, and I was scared to tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody for a long time because back then, I would hear stories too, and people would just laugh at you, call you crazy and stuff. So I did not tell anybody for a long time. But when I got home, being as my car was red, I mean, I thought, man, I knew what I seen, and plain as day. But I thought, my gosh, he's seen my car, and he's seen me, and we made eye contact, even though I couldn't see his eyes, but he did look straight at me, and I could not sleep for weeks, and I was scared. I'm talking, I really didn't. I parked my car into the garage as close as I could get to the door, and I did not sleep. And it scared the crap out of me. I was talking to my sister earlier and talking about it, and I mean, it still kind of gives me the creeps, and it was like 18 years ago. There's been a lot of sightings and stuff like that over there on Cloud Creek also. There's been like noises, like screams or yelling, I guess, like growling. In fact, about that time, years back, some people had seen something, some kind of a creature. They didn't know what it was. So, of course, they got a hold of the cops. And everybody was out there by that time. And this sheriff happened to see it and started chasing it. And he was scared. I mean, he was telling us the story. And he was scared while he was chasing it. And somehow he lost sight of it. He lost it. He couldn't understand why, because it was huge. They still hear the growling or screams or something. It has some kind of a unique noise that it makes. It almost sounds like almost like a mating call, I guess, if you want to say that. But it's scary. I don't want to see it again. And whoever laughed, I wish they could see it. I wish they could spot it. And they'll be scared to death too, because it's not fun. I wish I hadn't seen it, because it's an image that sticks into your head. I mean, it sticks in your mind, and it's something that don't go away.
Yeah, without a doubt, it'll never leave you. And I was kind of doing some research in the county that this property is located in, and I was surprised. It's a major hotspot there in Oklahoma. And your encounter really reminds me of Holly. I had her on Friday night show, and the creature had slammed its fist down on the hood of her car, just like it did on yours. I wanted to ask you, when it slammed its fist down, was that before or after you screamed?
I think it was about the same time, because I was that close to it. And I knew right then, it was like it was crossing the road. And of course, I my little car, I had my radio up so loud, and I'm sure, it had to hear the music before it even seen me. And about the time I rounded that curve, I was so close to it that it hit the hood. I didn't even think about, if it dented it or anything until way later on, because that thought had completely slipped my mind, because I was just so worried about, it was going to find me. I didn't go out and look at it and look at my hood for a while, but luckily it didn't dent it. I almost wish it had, so maybe people would have believed me, but it was scary.
Yeah, it's scary to run into one of these things. When you got your grandson in the car and it's slamming its fist down on the car, I would be terrified too. I know this was kind of in the morning time when you ran into this creature, and he did a pretty good job of describing him. But for the audience, was there anything that really kind of stood out to you about his appearance?
Oh wow, it was huge, and I guess you could say it was maybe 8.5 feet tall. I'm only 5 foot, so I'm scrawny, and it was huge. It didn't even, when it looked at me, of course, it didn't turn its body; it just turned its head, and it's like, I don't know, it's like a person, but not. But it's almost like he seen me and he wasn't scared. In animals, when they see you, they run off. I couldn't see his eyes because of all the hair, and it was so black that I knew it seen me because it was just right there. But I could not see its eyes because of all the hair. But it looked like it was pretty man-like, but it was huge. And it's like I disrupted, his daily walk or something. I don't know, but I don't want to see it again.
Yeah, I don't blame you for not wanting to see it again. And it sounds like it was definitely a different one than Jeanette had run into. I know she was saying hers was about 5'11", and the appearance seems very different. So many things going on that property. Did you ever experience anything strange or hear anything odd out there?
Ooh, on the property, I've heard my name being called over there. I've heard dogs yelping like they were in pain one night, and I had my little fan going by my head, and because I have to sleep with noise, but I heard some dogs yapping, and we have like a couple dogs in the backyard, and I just laid there and I listened. I'm like, okay, they sound like they're in pain. So I got up and I turned the fan off, and I opened the window, and it stopped. I didn't hear nothing. There was nothing but silence. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear cars. I didn't hear nothing. And I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't hear them. But then I was fixing to lay back down and turn the fan back on. And then about that time, I heard a little girl crying. And it was like, not like a hurt cry, but like a painful cry. She was welling, or however you want to say it. She was just bawling her eyes out. And I just thought, oh my gosh. So I was just laying back down, and I got back up, and I went back to the window. I was almost kind of scared by this time, but I went back to the window and I looked out, and silence again. And so I stood at the window for a few minutes, and I was going to wake my sister up, but I was too scared to even go wake her up by this time. So I just stood at the window for a while, and finally I thought, okay, I'm not going to hear nothing else. I won't hear nothing else. And I turned my little fan back on, and I lay back down, and I didn't hear anything else after that. But then the next morning, I was telling my sister all about it. And she's like, you should have woke me up. You should have woke me up. And I'm like, well, I was kind of scared after a while. And she's like, you know what it sounds like? I said, what? And she said, it sounds like that little girl might have been looking for her dogs. Like maybe her dogs got run over or they were lost, because that's a kind of cry that I was hearing. And she sounded like maybe she was like 8 or 9 years old. Nothing, no one older than that. But it was like a cry like that, a sad, mournful cry.
What do you think is going on out there, Carol? I mean, there's so many weird stuff, just weird things going on out there, and everyone's kind of experiencing a little bit of everything. What do you think's going on with that property?
I don't know, but we've lived in different places, and it seems like we've had sightings or something happen, like every place we go. And even in that same room, it seems like there's that certain room that I stay in that there's more activity. And even one night too, my mattress, I would feel my bed shake at different times, different nights. But one night, something was moving my mattress completely off the bed. And I was so tired because I had worked like a double shift. I was exhausted. And so I could feel my mattress moving, and I just moved right along with my mattress. Because, and it really didn't scare me. But by the time morning time came, my mattress was halfway freaking hanging off the bed, and so was I. But yeah, I've had several occasions where something has shook my bed in that very same bedroom.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you guys are out of that property. I mean, growing up and having this become the normal is terrifying. Going back to Sasquatch, because you got a pretty good look at it, Carol. I mean, it slammed its hand down on the hood of your car. If someone were to ask you what is Sasquatch, what would you say?
I don't know. I call it a creature. I don't call it man-like or animal-like. A creature, I guess, from another world. I mean, there's been sightings of it for years and years, and we never see anything, skeletal of it. No one knows what it eats or what it does or where it lives, where it goes, but they're everywhere. I do believe that.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a fair answer. I want to ask you, all this paranormal stuff that you guys were experiencing on this property, and then you saw the creatures. Do you think that it's related?
No, I think there's a difference, really, because I don't know, with Sasquatch, I he's real, and I know he's real because I've seen him. With the paranormal stuff, it's stuff that you hear and everything. I mean, I know that part is real because you do hear it, but I think there's a difference there. I think there's, left versus right, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and I was curious of your opinion. And I really appreciate you coming on, Carol, and sharing, these different. I was telling Miranda and Janette that, experiences like this are very personal, and I get that. And they're not the easiest things sometimes to talk about. But thank you so much for coming on.
I didn't tell anybody for a long time after seeing Sasquatch because I knew they would just like laugh at me, and I wanted to tell people so bad. Some people still did laugh, but then, there's a lot more that really believed it because there has been so many sightings.
Yeah, and I think it's important to document those sightings. And thank you guys so much again for taking the time.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad to tell it.
And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. If you get a chance to check out sasquatchchronicles.com, you can become a member and get additional shows. Until next time, everyone.